welcome for joining us for this live stream event by Edinburgh Napier University as part of National Money Week. National Money Week, if you don't know, is an annual campaign to publicise and highlight money support that students can access while in higher education across Scotland and the UK, and trying to normalise the conversation about it, which is why we're here today, just to chat about particular different how Edinburgh Napier University has various funding pots available which students can apply to, and just dispel some myths we quite often hear from different students, and just chat about that. And there will be a chance for questions, etc., in the comments below. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name's Ben. I'm a senior development executive at Edinburgh Napier University, and I manage the different philanthropic, charitable donations the university receives and the awarding processes. Most of our charitable donations at the moment are for student support, different scholarships, bursaries, grants, which all have different criteria and all need to be applied for. We'll chat about that later in this live stream, I'm sure. So, so students can apply to that directly to my team, and we help to award that. I'll move on to David, because I think that will naturally, as he introduces himself, naturally talk about the other area of funding we have available.
Hi, my name's David. I'm a student funding advisor at Edinburgh Napier University. I mainly help with all our funds. We've got discretionary funds, childcare funds, and other scholarships and bursaries currently running at the moment. Also, one nursing midwifery discretionary fund as well. We also can help with some advice, small advice anyway, but normally we pass on to ENSA quite a lot of our budgeting advice as well. So I'll hand over to Marion.
Hi, so I'm Marianne Hogg. I'm one of the advisors in the Edinburgh Napier Students Association Advice Team, or ENSA, as we're known. I think the most important thing probably to mention about ENSA is that we are independent from the university. So we do have very strong links with the uni, and we work closely with, for example, Ben and David's teams, but we are independent. So there's no conflict of interest there for students who choose to come and speak to us. Our service is free to access, it's confidential, and our advisors are all impartial and they are non-judgmental. So these are our kind of core principles. We've got 4 advisors in our team. We all work on a part-time basis, but between us, we cover the whole week. And we're currently doing a mixture of kind of remote advice, and we are back on campus now doing some face-to-face meetings. So we can do phone, email, Microsoft Teams, and face-to-face. So just the type of things that we advise on, quite wide-ranging. All of our advisors can advise on academic matters and also welfare issues. Given that today's topic is Money Week, I'll just very quickly explain how ENSA can help students with money matters. So we sort of help students, we support students to access the funds that David was talking about there. So the university kind of discretionary funds, hardship funds, etc. And we also sometimes get involved if students are having difficulty with paying tuition fees. So we negotiate with the fees team at the uni to help try and get more favourable kind of payment plan terms for students. We have a liaison with SAS, which is the Student Awards Agency here in Scotland, to help home students to understand their student loans, their bursaries, their fee position. And then we just help students to kind of maximize their income through any other means. So this might include, for example, welfare benefit entitlement in some limited cases, and just any other benevolent funds that we might become aware of. We give budgeting advice, like David mentioned. And the other thing that's important to know is that we do have a kind of, we can help in a crisis. If a student finds themselves in extreme financial hardship, we have good links with the Edinburgh food banks, for example. We can make referrals for students there. So that's a kind of a whistle-stop tour of what we do. We do advise on a wide range of topics. We take quite a holistic approach. But I think the basic thing to say is if you're in any doubt as to whether ENSA can help you, then please do get in touch with us. And if we can't, we can certainly point you in the direction of someone who can.
Thank you, guys. So, as I said, we're going to have a little chat in a moment about the different myths we quite often find students can think are true or when applying for funding. The reason we've moved into this is because, just to reiterate, the funding we're chatting about today is the funding held by the university in some capacity. It's separate to SAS, separate to student financing, again, but separately. But this is the extra funding, so to speak, but at the same time essential for the students we award it to. to help meet day-to-day costs, or even with some of the philanthropic scholarships, pay for course fees if you are a non-Scottish student and you're required to pay course fees. So the application process is we are required to ask for certain information as we are all audited on this, whether it be by government or as a charitable organisation. We get audited on making sure we meet the criteria we've agreed to award it to, which means we ask for information that students are sometimes wonder, why is that being asked for? And then particularly since we've gone into the pandemic, it's very remote, so not putting a face to the name can make it feel like we're putting up roadblocks in a difficult process for the sake of it, which is not the case at all. Hopefully our friendly faces will help to dispel those myths. And we can chat to a few today with some common things we hear from students and issues, solutions around that, and dispel some things which are completely not true at all. So we'll make a start with the first myth. So the first myth I've got down here is I can't submit an application for extra funding because I don't have a tenancy agreement. So whether that's, is that true, is that false? Dave, have you got any thoughts around that?
Not all students live in private accommodation. Some will live at home. Some of our students are kind of sharing a room with friends, but are still paying rent. Now, normally what we'd ask if you're staying at home with friends, we would ask for proof, either on your bank statements of the rent being paid, or a letter or email from the person you're paying the money to, just as proof. So if you're giving money to your parents, it might be £50 a week, but on your bank statements we see cash being taken out for £10. So it's just an extra bit of proof to show that you are paying the rent. That's all. But you don't have to have a tenancy agreement. But if you are living in private accommodation and not sharing, it's best to have a tenancy agreement, because then you should always ask for one when renting a flat.
And I would say if you're having difficulty with your landlord in any capacity, it's a slight sideways comment, but ENSA, that's another area that we will advise on, as we can help students to liaise with their landlords and just advise on general kind of housing issues. So do come and speak to us if you're getting into difficulty with your landlords.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you leading back to what Dave is saying, the key thing about this is we need to evidence, as in case we're audited on it, that we've checked for evidence of accommodation costs. Not necessarily tenancy. We do have students, particularly mature students with mortgages, etc. So just evidence of that that cost you said in your application form is coming out. But I think just because quite often some students don't have a fixed tenancy agreement, the thought is, oh well, that's me, I can't apply. That's not the case at all. As long as we can provide, we can work with you to see that somewhere on a bank statement or a letter, etc. And we'll be good to go. I think it's definitely good to go in terms of submitting the application. So I think we've covered that one. We'll move on to the next one, which is I can only make one application for funding during the academic year. Just stay straight off the bat that is also not correct. There are various different opportunities for students to apply for extra funding throughout the year. I think the key thing is what we try to do at Napier is, because we've got different pots of funding, some through philanthropic donations through my team, student funding. We're conscious that students can come across as quite confusing as where students need to go to apply. So what we've done is to try to make that as streamlined as possible, and at the front end of where you apply. So through something called either the Find a Fund application system or eVision. They're all online forms. It doesn't really, the main thought for students should just be, I'm short on money, I'm worried about X, Y, and Z bill, I'll apply to funding, and then you submit your application. It will go to either me or my team or David's team, depending on which funds you matched into. But I suppose the key point being that what we want to do is make sure that we're available as much as we can be throughout the academic year, because it just, students get in the mindset of applying for SAS during the summertime. But the key thing about this fund is they're here to help with those unforeseen bills, potentially, particularly the discretionary fund. When things can get really tight, and that could be at any time of the year. We know that doesn't just happen in September or around Christmas. You don't know when these things. So that's why, and even if you've applied before and received some funding or been unsuccessful at that time, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful when you apply later on. Any other points to add there?
I mean, when we look at a discretionary fund application, we are trying to help the student as best as possible. So we might look at their budget, and they could be down each month from their budget. So you might give them multiple payments from one application. So we could help you for a couple of months, or we might predict that you might need a bit more money later on. With, a lot of students, especially final students, you come to your dissertation, your projects, you need help for fundings for that as well. But there can also be an unforeseen thing which a student may not know about. So they've already applied to the discretionary fund, and 1 month, currently what's going on in the world, unfortunately, some people, they've had contracts stopped when they're working, and they can't pay, and they're not be able to pay their rent. So they've already applied to us, and they're worried they may not be able to apply again. Yes, you can. We're here to help you. We're here to help you get to your final year and to graduate. That's what we want to do. If
a student is unsuccessful in their application, will you always give a reason to the student to let them know why?
Always do, yes. Yeah.
So there'd be nothing to stop you learning from whatever mistake you made in the application and then using it in the next round.
Of course. Sometimes a student may not give us all the information, and we request it multiple times, and we still don't get the information. So we might reject it for that. Or it could be they've got sufficient funds at that time. But again, you've got the unforeseen thing. You don't know what's going to happen. So at the time, you may have sufficient funds, but then something else could happen, like you lose your job or something like that. Or we've had to pay a higher cost for something, especially like heating bills going up at the moment. Your bills might be more expensive after winter. We don't know. So even if you have been rejected, you can always apply again.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the key thing is we'd rather have students apply and not be eligible than have students not apply when they really need it. So, so just the worst thing that can happen is your application is unsuccessful. At least you know that you've applied for everything you might be eligible to apply for. Another thing as well, nature of charitable funds is some of them are assessed in conjunction with academic merit as well, depending on the agreement we have with different funders. We always want the funding to have a big difference for the awarded student financially, but there are different factors you maybe wouldn't consider. So we may look in, some funds may look into your academic record. That's more just to make sure that things are on track, and there's a good chance you'll be able to complete with the help of the funding. But again, the key message there as well, there will be help as well. There is different help outside the academic support. So there are times we make awards, and if a student says, well, I want to go for this, but I'm not sure I've got the academic capabilities, like, well, there are support to help with that as well. We can work together, us from the funding side. ENSA as well do offer, help when it comes to the academic support, etc. So if you don't know who to ask, don't be scared to just approach us, and we will be able to get you in the right direction one way or the other. I suppose that's a key thing as well. I think anyone got any points? Shall I move on to the next one? So the next one I have is, I can't apply because I don't have the exact details of my income and expenditure. Any points on that, Dave? Do you want to?
Yeah. When it comes to income and expenditure, I mean, some students are on 0-hour contracts with work. So it's just the best, kind of average out your wages which you've earned already. That will give us a rough idea how much your income will be. And expenditure, the best thing to do is just look through your bank statements. Some people always have a direct debit, like you've got your mobile phone, your rent always going out. You can get an average of your food spends as well. Luckily now in Scotland, anyone under the age of 21 who's Scottish can get free travel on the buses. But everyone else, you still have to pay for your travel. So if you've got a bus pass, that's another direct debit. So you can see all those already. And it's trying to take a best guess. It's best to be honest about your budgets, especially in discretionary funds. It gives you the difference between your income and expenditure. And if you know that, you can budget more carefully as well. But yeah, it's just look through your bank statements. I mean, when we look at applications, we see the budget which the students put in, and we look through the bank statements as well. We try and match them up, but you can't always see everything. You can't always know your income and expenditure. So yeah, we look at the bank statements. We might see a difference anyway, because some students, of course, you might go out for a few nights in a row and stuff like that. You can't always budget for your social costs. It changes every month. So yeah, they still apply anyway. But I mean, yeah, we've had a good experience of looking through bank statements over the years to understand the student's budget sometimes, and it took me a while, even myself personally. You know, you thought you had enough money in your bank account, you thought you were budgeting carefully, and all of a sudden I'm running out of money. It's like, why am I running out of money? Like, so, yeah, knowing your income and expenditure is not an exact science, and you don't always get it right every time anyway. But yes, please still apply.
Yeah. I find experience from assessing, I do start the student's budget they've put down as a starting point, but you do see those differences, which is only natural. And the key thing is accurate as it can be. And I think the exercise of applying for funding is good, even if you're not successful. The exercise of actually thinking about what's my budget and putting it in the form is helpful for students also.
And I think it's better to put anything down than sometimes I think you can get a bit overwhelmed by the task of doing your budget because it just feels too difficult, so then you don't do anything. So it's better just to do something, put something down, and we do at ENSA have a budgeting exercise that we can go through with students, which can be quite helpful because it just helps you to think of things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, just focuses the mind a bit, goes through all the different line items of things that you might be spending your money on. And I think students do tend to find that exercise quite useful, and then you can use that financial statement that we produce to submit to David's team, and it can be quite helpful.
I mean, on personal reasons as well, I mean, when I applied for my mortgage, you have to budget for that as well, and looking at your bank statement, you do really start to see what you spend your money on. So even if you're not applying for any funds, it's just wise. It's sometimes good to do one anyway for your own personal interest. But yes,
I'm sure there must be budgeting apps and things that you can get now, probably, aren't there?
Yeah, there are.
The best one I use is an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's the best
Old
one.
school.
I do the same. Just before we move on to the next, I'll just add to this. Some of our funds as well from the Development Office are to help students participate in overseas exchanges. So students come to apply. Is what we're conscious of as exchanges. We don't want to just be for students who can afford them through to family having a strong financial background, etc. You know, we want exchanges to be for everyone. So part of that is students budgeting for their exchange, and they apply ahead of the time. So we have a lot of students worry, well, how can I apply if I don't know what my budget is exactly going to be overseas? But the key thing is it's as close as you can with the estimate being the key word, but you know, as close as you can, and a bit of research. And again, that exercise of doing a bit of research into it helps bring that exchange more to life for the student. And so it's kind of, you know, it's a similar as well. It should put thought into it and be as accurate as you can, but we're not going to pick you out for this penny being off here and this pound being off here. That's not what we're there to do. Right.
Just another quick point. I mean, not all our funds you need to have a budget for. It's only if you're trying to, if it's discretionary funds, childcare funds, you know, and some of the funds which you're talking about there, Ben, it's like for financial hardship. We do have the access bursary, the merit bursaries, which don't request any budgeting at all. Just have a merit or household income. So just because you don't know your income and expenditure, it won't stop you applying to it. It doesn't stop you anyway, but always look at all our other funds as well.
Excellent, really good point. We better move on to the next one. So the next myth I've got is I need to submit bank statements for all accounts held in my name and the name of my partner in my application. This one is completely true. We don't. The reason for this is again is perhaps the point that we need to evidence any awards we make, and part of that is understanding as much about our students' financial situation. And if you're living with a partner, you don't need to be married. It's living with a partner. A lot of the awarding policies will see you as one household, and we are making an award to the student, but to help that whole household. So we do need the evidence of the partner as well. And a key question I've got, and I'm sure you three will hear this, when we ask for a bank statement, we know there's evidence in an account, and the response is, the balance is 0 and I never use it. Well, the key thing is we need to know, we need to evidence that and know that. So we're not looking to trip you up. I think sometimes students can hold back on the information, thinking it will help their application. The exact opposite is true. The more you put in, the more likely it's going to be that you're going to be awarded. Any other comments on that, guys?
Yeah, students hear bank statements, they just think of a current account as well.
Yes.
So we can see transfers going between other bank accounts, and it's actually savings accounts as well. We need to see those as well. But you've got so many banks. You've got Monzo, Monese, Starling, Virgin Money. There's so many banks out there, and savings types accounts. We've now got trading as well. We also request cryptocurrency statements as well now, because we can see students starting to use a lot more cryptocurrency. And you may not, as I said, Ben said, you may not have any money in these accounts, but if you see like a small transfer, we know as an account that we just need to make sure, I jokingly say to some students, like, just need to make sure you haven't got £10,000 in the account. Obviously, you come into us anyway, so you won't have that kind of money, but we need to ensure, because some of the money is not actually our money, it's public funds, we need to make sure that we're spending the money wisely. And again, as Ben said, the more information we have, the better we can assess an application, and the better we can help you as well. So yeah, I mean, it's not just your current account statement, we need to see all statements. And sometimes when going through bank statements, you might just see the sort code and account number. And you see the transfer going to those accounts. Sometimes it could be your own account, sometimes it could be another person's account. But because there's no reference to it, we may request proof of that statement. And it could be like, oh, it's my mum's account, my dad's account. Well, we won't need to see the whole statement. It's just the name on the account and the account details. We don't need to see the transactions. That can all be redacted, hidden. It's just those small details as proof that it's not your account. That's all.
As well, just quickly, we'll head to the final myth in a bit. But one thing as well, we have international students who apply for us and don't understand that we also need to see the statements for accounts back home. Marion, I know we've worked with students recently regarding this.
Yeah, this is probably the number one thing that we see when students come to us at ENSA and they've been rejected from any of these funds. This is usually the reason. So it is just really worthwhile stressing the importance of providing evidence of all accounts. And we do stress that to anybody who comes to see us.
Excellent. So we'll do, I think we've got some questions coming in, we'll find out in a bit, but we'll do the last myth now quickly, which is one I do get. I can't download or get current bank statements for my accounts. The thing is, you can get bank statements for pretty much all UK banks now online as well. They need to go into a branch is pretty much irrelevant now. I think it's just finding out how to do it. Marion, do you get students come to you with these points as well? Or?
Yeah, sometimes we do. Students who are having sort of technical issues and saying things like, or sometimes they've managed to get a bank statement, but then they can't upload it onto the e-student record or however it is that they're supposed to upload it. So yeah, I mean, I think what we always just say is, look, if you're having difficulties of a tech kind of nature, come and speak to us. And if you're not able to progress that, we at ENSA can act as a voice for you. We can advocate for you. We can speak to David, we can speak to Ben on your behalf and just say, look, is there something wrong with the system today? Because obviously occasionally things might go wrong and it might not be the student's kind of fault that they can't upload something. But yeah, like you say, most of the time it is possible to get these statements from, and to be honest, most students are pretty tech savvy about this kind of stuff, I think. But you might get the odd one or two who are just struggling to do this. So we would always just try and support a student to liaise with you guys to try and get that information across within the deadline, because that's the key point there, isn't it?
I mean, one thing for us as well, we need to see current transactions. And we do get a lot of students who upload bank statements, but it's their current bank statement. Because some banks release statements once a month for the previous month. We need to see the most recent transactions. That way we can see how much money you've got in the bank account, and we can see how you're spending your money as well, and keep advice on that. So you can always download your recent transactions. It's not also the current statement, it's the recent transactions. If you can't do that on your app on your phone, because I know some apps for some banks, they don't work the same as going through on the website, you can always just walk into your bank and request a printed copy of your statement, which you can then scan in on any printer within the university. They've all got scanners built into them. But you can now use your phone. Don't just take pictures with your phone. You can download scanning apps. I mean, I use an iPhone. You can use the Notes app even to scan documents as well nowadays, and that can be uploaded as a PDF. And where Marion was saying about some students can't upload bank statements, some statements get downloaded as a .csv file. Just upload that. Don't change it to an Excel file, because sometimes the columns suddenly shrink and then we still can't see the information, and then we'll go back to saying we need to see this. So make sure.
If the worst comes to worst, can they put it in an internal envelope and send it to you in the internal university post, or do you only, has it got to be done?
It's got to be done digitally. We can't accept. Currently, at the moment, we can't, because I'm working at home at the moment, so we can't get posts. And with what's going on, we're not accepting any posts. Some students do email them in, but because we get so many emails a day as well, it can get lost in emails. So it's just best to try and upload it. If you still can't, always give us a phone call first, and then we can look out for it. So it doesn't get lost.
I think, I think the key thing is there is, so I think to sum up, there is a way of getting a statement downloaded from pretty much all UK accounts. And then we can, and if you're not quite sure how to do it, don't be scared to ask. I know, as I said, I know Enso are more than happy to advocate for you and help you actually advise you on how, for your particular account, how you can provide that information. And we do prefer the information uploaded directly to the application, simply because it can be hard for us to manage uploading it for you. But as I said, if it's becoming really tricky for you, then there are other options there as well. So I think that's the end of our miss. We have got some questions coming in, so I'm going to start reading them out. So thank you for sending these in. The first question says, hello, thanks for the session. It's to inform that most of the students' applications, here we are, it's to inform that most of the students' applications are unsuccessful due to not providing proof of tenancy. Is there an alternative, as today's accommodation is a big issue and most people living in are paying in cash banks? So yes, we covered a myth at the start of the session about tenancy agreements. So if there's no formal tenancy agreement, the key thing we said was, so in that case, if you're paying in cash, a letter from whoever you're paying the rent to in cash is key. It needs to be signed and formal, and to be kind of a bit more formal. Some of them I have seen handwritten ones signed. Dave, do you have any comments on that?
With the handwritten tenancy agreements, which we see, or handwritten letters, it's just to let people know that it's going to be signed and dated, because it is a legal document. So you do sign a declaration at the end. So any information provided, if it is false, there's that declaration. So we do stress this is a legally binding document. Yes, we do get students without a tenancy agreement again, and as earlier as we discussed, we need to see proof of the accommodation is being checked. What you put in your application, some students might be paying £300, £600 for accommodation. We need to see that on a bank statement. If you're withdrawing cash, we will see that as being taken out. But sometimes we do see students like £25, £50 of cash coming out in small, there's small amounts of cash being withdrawn. And it's very difficult to prove that it's for your tenancy agreement as well. This is why we ask for a signed and dated letter. It's just trying to inform us how you're paying, who you're paying it to, and just this proof, this evidence which we need to see. Without this evidence, unfortunately, we cannot accept it. Because again, going back to this whole public funds, we have to ensure that the money is being spent well.
And it's the same with charitable funds. As a charitable body, we need to be responsible with the donations received. So, but yeah, there are other ways than the tenancy agreement, and a signed, as long as it's a legal document, which is signed, dated, and declaration included in that, then we can hopefully move forward, depending on other factors in the application too. So we've got more questions coming in. So with the next one, there's been a few about the tenancy agreement I can see. So
I can see that one from Saeed. Application being successful. Just please email us. We won't discuss applications over a live stream like this. Please email us, and then we can get back. Then we can look at the application and get back to you via email. That's the best way.
Yeah, just because there is a data protection issue there, talking about a thing like this. So Pablo has asked, what funding opportunities are available for EU undergraduate applicants? So this is where I'd recommend that if you're a current student, you could apply to the Find a Fund application system. So what that does is there's quite a number of funds from student funding other than, so the funds which aren't in that system are discretionary and childcare. The rest of the university's funds are awarded through the Find a Fund system, and the majority of those funds in there are the charitable ones. A lot of the charitable funds can be funded for EU students. And what we try to do is plug the gap of students who are not eligible for the discretionary fund. The discretionary fund is for UK and Scottish students. So what we do is you'd submit an application. I could think off the top of my head, Pablo, of about 13 different philanthropical funds you may be eligible for, but you don't need to submit 13 applications. For a start, that number's unlucky. Secondly, is you'd submit that one application to the Find a Fund system, providing the information we've chatted about today. You'll be asked for all the things we've chatted about. Once that's submitted, the system, using your data and your application questions, student data and your application questions, will match you to the different funds you could be eligible for at that time. Doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get funding, but it means you've not missed out on anything. And there'll be and there are, as I said, there are options there for EU students. I think because in the past there have been spells for 5 years ago when we didn't have a lot of funding for EU students. We've really tried to correct that. These are things which are out of our control because we rely on external funding to come into the university and funders to agree to this. But we've been able to lobby ENSA with a huge help with that, as were the National Students' Union. We have a lot of EU students, and particularly in time of Brexit, we want to be able to support and keep our strong EU cohort at the university. So that's why we've really pushed to get funding available, and we award quite a few EU students every year. So I see another question which come in is, Pablo, is from you as well, about asking for a loan in your home country. So, the first one, quickly said that, again, that's hard for us to advise on. Your financial situation better than we do at this point. The only thing I'd say is we would prefer, the funding we award, none of it is a loan. It is some philanthropic stuff. It's all bursary style. You don't pay it back. A discretionary fund, childcare fund, that you don't pay it back. So it is a better option than taking out a loan, which you will one day need to repay. Depending on where you're from and the type of loan you receive, you may need to start repaying a loan if it's a bank loan straight away, which I'd be worried about you doing. So I suppose the answer is come to us first. If you come to the point that you are needing to take out loans to study with us, then we've probably missed something in helping you. So do try to come to us. Would you guys agree with that? Is that a fair response?
I would agree.
We need to be a bit careful when it comes to taking out external loans and the advice that we would give on that, because that's quite a regulated industry, and I don't think we would be in a position to advise, regardless whether it's your home country or indeed here. There are organisations you can go to, certainly for looking at loans in this country, such as the Money Advice Service, Citizens Advice Bureau, but it's not something we would typically get involved with advising on the merits of different loans and payment schedules and so on. It's out with the scope really of either the university or ENSA's advice, I think.
That's, I think, the key thing. Come to us for support too, not about the loan. We'll be advising about our own funds, etc. Before you look into those sort of options would be my key takeaway. Question wise, I think that's all I can see on our side. So I will begin to wrap up now, unless any come in. So I think the key theme from today is, as I started to point out, is it'd be quite easy when you're applying for funding at Napier because the system's online, and particularly since the pandemic, there's not been the opportunity to meet people like ourselves, so it's been kind of a faceless system. That it's a deliberately difficult process to apply for Napier funding, and a bit like any financial support, and what people feel similar about mortgages, etc. And there's roadblocks for the sake of it, which is not the case at all. Our key thing is we want to help, and we want to make sure that everyone who is eligible for support and needs support gets it. And as I would always say, that I'd rather have students apply to us who don't need the funding or aren't eligible for the funding, have lots of those to make sure that we get everyone and I can award everyone who needs it. I'd rather assess 19 applications which aren't eligible and make sure I get that extra one who is eligible than have then miss that one person, only assess 5 or 6. So do come to us if you need support, and we want to help. We're not wanting to just be difficult. It's not the case at all. In fact, it's the exact opposite. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. Any other points?
I would say, kind of following on from Ben there, it's always best to come to us sooner rather than later.
Yes.
If you know you're not going to be able to pay your rent 1 month, come to us as soon as possible, because we're currently working. It's a very busy period for us at the moment. Currently, it normally takes us 21 days to assess just discretionary fund applications. Yeah. We've got, I think, about 14, 15 other funds which we're all dealing with at the same time. We're quite a small team, so it can delay us as well. And also, you don't want to put it at the last minute, because like for some people with rent, you don't. Some people panic that the landlord's going to start chasing them up and things like that. It's just that stress as well. If you get it done as soon as possible,
that's good advice.
Relieve a lot of the stress. Yeah. And one thing I do want to, kind of say as well, we are a confidential service.
Yeah, 100%.
You can come to us. We don't speak to anyone else within the university. We may suggest you speak to someone like ENSA, or other teams within the university, but we do not talk to anyone else. So a lot of people have this embarrassment about financial hardship. It's not embarrassing. It does happen. It may happen to you. It may not happen, which is good. But if it does, we're here for you. We're not going to tell you off as well how you spend your money. But always come to us, please. Yeah.
No, I think the key is a really good point, Dave, there, because we want to. I see is we're most successful when we prevent you reaching that point of real financial stress, and that's when that's the point we can see ahead, and we can see that's coming if we don't help you. So that's why we're here to help you. Yeah. We don't if we're helping you right at the last minute, something's gone awry. Whether it was you're not quite knowing where to go, and that's why we're trying to make this as visible as possible for you and as easy as possible for you. So if you're unsure whether you need to apply for us, then you probably should apply to us because you're thinking about it's just we do have a lot of applications too, which we're happy to do. As I keep saying, we would rather make sure that everyone applies to us who needs it. But it does mean that you need to think ahead of when you apply and know that if when you apply, the money's not going to be next week, or it is that turnaround. Do you have any points, Marion, before we wrap up? Or
No, I think it was just to sort of let people know how they can contact us. But I think is that going to appear on the screen?
I believe it. I think
it is. Yeah. In case not, I mean, it's all online. ENSA. You can Google ENSA. We're about to move to an online appointment booking system, so that'll be really good. Not quite there yet. So for now, you just email ensa.advice@napier.ac.uk and make an appointment for us. I think it's going to appear in the comments at the end of this session. I've just seen so. But please reach out sooner than later. And ENSA can sometimes help in a serious crisis. If there's a situation where a student is going to be getting a payment from one of the discretionary funds, but it just takes David's team, as you said, David, it can take up to 21 days to process that. We can sometimes, in some circumstances, step in and get the money to the student quicker than that. We have an arrangement in place with the university where we can do that to help students where it's a serious situation. So definitely reach out if you find yourself in that kind of circumstance, because there will be something we can do.
Thank you very much. I think that's so thank you for joining us today. I hope the session was helpful. We will have contact details if you want to follow up with any questions for us. And I do hope that you feel comfortable coming to us for support if you need it, and hopefully see you at Napier sometime soon. Thanks now.
Thanks.
Thank you.